Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Cool. Okay, guys, so thank you and welcome to everyone who's joined this seminar this morning. My name is Nana and I'm a director of Inspire alongside my partner Vida, who is the director and founder of Inspire. So Inspire is a charity based in the UK and in Ghana. And at the moment in Ghana, we are running a project called the Equip to Succeed program. It's basically a mentoring program. And as part of that program, we've been putting together like a few different workshops just to help young people with their careers. So this workshop is called Entrepreneurship and How to Build Connections. We've got some amazing panelists with us here today, and they're going to give you a bit of an insight into their journey, how they were able to start their own businesses. And we think it will be really beneficial for you guys in terms of forging your own career paths as well. So I think we're gonna get started with our first speaker. We'll just do introductions as we are going through the speakers as well. Vi, did you have anything to add?
No, no,
yeah,
thank you.
that's all good. Okay.
All good, all good.
Cool. So our first speaker is Arnold Baidoo. Hello, Arnold.
Yep.
How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you too?
Good. I'm doing good. Thank you. I'm doing good. Okay, so just a quick background about Arnold. So Arnold is an entertainment journalist and also a PR communications manager. He actually owns his own PR firm and he represents a number of brands in Ghana throughout the entertainment industry. So he's handled a few projects like the Miss Ghana show, radio and television awards. He's also worked with a couple of labels, so Highly Spiritual Music and Xylophone Music. I know you've worked with quite a few music artists as well. So people like Stonebwoy, Shatawale, Aforia Ponsa, Becca, amongst like a few others as well. And you've got a website as well, entertainmentgh.com.
Yep.
And
that's right.
Okay, great. And on top of that, you have a BSc in biological science from the University of Cape Coast, and a master's from Kwame Nkrumah, which is great. And you're also an aviation safety inspector at the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. So that's a lot of hats that you wear. There's a lot of hats. So at first, I want to just ask, what motivated you to start your company in PR?
I tried.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there's a little problem with the sound, but it gets better along the line.
Okay, no problem. So yeah, just talk to us a bit about what motivated you to start your company and your journey in like entertainment industry.
Well, I thank you very much. I started as an entertainment journalist, and along the line, I had to figure out my own business because I realized by virtue of the fact that I was speaking on radio and TV, I had most of these entertainers come to me to represent them in regards to PR and communication. And so when I started, I was doing it for free. I mean, I had no structure. So I remember, I think in 2016, I decided to put a structure to it, form a business, and gain some money. And so I started a business in 2016 where I officially was representing most of these entertainers and most of these brands in Ghana in regards to our entertainment industry. And so I've been doing this officially as a business for the past 4 years.
That's great. So when you were like building your company, how hard was it to secure funding? Did you need funding, and what were the kind of things that you did in order to put you in a good position financially?
Yeah, funding is always key when you are building any business. I mean, you can't enter into any business venture without funding, and so it's key. And for me, because I was doing it before I put a structure to it, some of these clients were paying, and so I was able to get some revenue from them. And also because I had other revenue streams, because apart from what I do in the entertainment industry, I also work with the Civil Aviation Authority, and so I self-funded myself. I self-funded the company, and so that's how I was able to, put things together to actually establish the business. So apart from the fact that these guys were paying, although most of them were not paying, I mean some, and so money that I get from some of these clients and other revenue streams from other ventures is what I use to fund the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that, Arnold. Let's just pick up where we left off. So I was asking about the challenges that you faced in building your business, and what did you do to overcome them?
Yeah. Okay, so like I was saying, our industry, our entertainment industry, is not as well structured as what you have in the UK and probably in the US. And so these entertainers and their handlers, when I was starting, they did not really have the understanding as to why they should have a representation when it comes to PR. They did not get it why they should have a publicist, and so the recognition was quite a problem. They didn't realize or understand why they should have somebody representing them when it comes to communicating their brands or whatever project they were into. So it was quite a problem. And the second thing was the payment. I mean, when I started the job, getting paid was quite a struggle because they were not having a lot of money from whatever music they were producing or whatever movies they were producing. They didn't understand why they should also expend some of their resources to whoever was representing them in terms of PR and communication. So those were the challenges that I faced in the beginning. But over the period, I was able to overcome them by orientation. Because I have platforms, I do radio, I do TV, and I also write. I have a column in most of these newspapers. I was able to orientate them and tell them how imperative it is to have a PR or a publicist or a communication expert in your fold, and they need to actually pay them. And so I was also able to make them understand that it's always important for a brand to also to have a publicist. I mean, because you could be entangled in all manner of stuff, and you need a representation when it comes to PR. And most importantly, corporate firms will take you serious when you have a solid PR team. And so the orientation, the ability to make them understand, and they also compromise. Because I remember in 2018, there was an issue where Shatta Wale had to exhibit his private parts on his snap, and it became a big issue in Ghana. And so he had a stance as an artist with all his ego and all that stuff. He had a stance of not, responding or releasing any communique, any response. He felt, well, he's done it, and so he could take all the bashing. But as a PR expert representing a label, we felt it was important for us to do a release and communicate to the general public as to the circumstances that surrounded his actions. And most importantly, because we had partners as a label that was producing his songs and his products, we had international partners, and the artist also had deals. And he's been signed to a lot of deals. So we felt it was important for us to do a statement and explain the circumstances. First of all, apologize and explain the circumstances that surrounded that action. And so the compromising was also key because the artists they have a stand, and so you need to compromise with them. And so these are some of the factors that I use in overcoming my challenges.
I think when it comes to like entertainment, you really have to be out there networking, meeting people, trying to build like your clientele list. How did you sort of navigate that? How did you network? Like what did you do to get in those rooms?
Okay, so for me, because I work in the entertainment space, if you're representing a movie actor or an artist or an event promoter, there's an ecosystem. So you need to connect with every personality or every entity within this ecosystem. So for example, if I'm representing a Shatta Wale or a Becca or a Jackie Appiah, I need to connect with the media executives. I mean, these are the people who own the radio and television station. I need to connect with the radio and television presenters. I need to connect with the publisher, because the publisher is the one that would actually ensure that the artist gets his or her royalties. I need to connect with the bloggers. I mean, the bloggers and the entertainment journalists are the guys who would actually project, these guys. And so the ecosystem, I need to connect with every individual that counts within this ecosystem, from the media executive to the blogger. And so these are the personalities that I have been working with over the period in regards to projecting these entertainers in terms of their communication.
Okay, that's great. So as a leader, how do you ensure that you maintain like ethical practices within your company and like your
Yeah.
staff? How do you make sure that's all covered?
Yeah. Well, fortunately for me, I run a very small group, and so I'm able to exert some level of control.
Yeah.
And even with this small group, what I've done is I have code of conduct. I mean, regardless of the size, I need to have some code of conduct, and so we need to exhibit a lot of professionalism in the work that we do because we're representing brands, and so it's key. You are the face and the mouthpiece of these brands, and so it's important that you exhibit a lot of professionalism in the work. And so that's what we do. And we also have a work plan, and so before we start the year, there's a work plan for the year. And then we also have monthly reports. We also need to evaluate ourselves with regards to how we are performing over the period. So the work plan and the work schedule is key, even from a small group. And then having a monthly report to actually evaluate what we've been able to achieve within that period. And so these are some of the things or mechanisms that I put in place to ensure that the work is viable and is sustainable as well.
Great. So if you know, a young person came to you today and they expressed interest in starting their own business within like the entertainment field, specifically in what you do, PR and communications, what advice would you give them?
Well, 3 basic points. First of all, you need to identify the business model, whether you want to do PR, whether you want to do a road manager or an artist manager, whatever field you want to go into, you need to identify it first. And then you also need to have an understanding, because you cannot make a foray into any business venture without having the requisite understanding.
Of course.
And so you need to really understand the business model that you are getting into. And then you must, most importantly, you must have a plan. Because I mean, how do you venture into it without having a plan? And so what's your vision? What are your objectives? What do you hope to achieve within a certain duration or a certain period of time? So knowing the business model, having an understanding, and having a concrete plan on how you achieve, these are the key points that I would give to any young or up and coming person who would want to venture into any business.
Awesome. And just finally, how would you, what are some of the practices you would tell young people to take on when it comes to like networking? What are some skills they need to utilize?
Well, fortunately for these young guys, I mean, social media is the in thing now. It's in vogue. And so when we were starting, we didn't have social media to actually project our work. And so these young guys have social media. And so what they need to do is to actually market. You need to market your stuff. And once they have all these gadgets on social media was not really in vogue as it is now. And so these young guys, I mean, they have all the gadgets when it comes to social media. So what they need to do is actually to market their product, or market their firm on social media. But the way go about it is to brand it very well. You need to package it in a very nice way that would make it look very appealing, because the clients out there would need to see the branding. And so
for those that are listening, if you have any questions at all, please just put it in the message box, in the chat box, and then that way we can have a look at it and ask the panelists as well. Great. So I think the next person on our panelists, we're going to do it male, female, just so that there's a bit of a balance. So I'm going to be speaking to Alison next. Just so that you know a bit about Alison. Alison is a CEO of Executive PA Gem Consultancy, which is a personal assistant training, recruiting and coaching company, which is based in Ghana. She has an impressive skill set with over 20 years executive PA experience, working in various sectors, both in London and in Ghana, in high profile roles, including for John Lewis Partnership, the NHS, and was also executive assistant to 2 British High Commissioners in Accra. Alison is an NLP practitioner and HR CIPD qualified. She has also set up a PA networking association in Ghana, paving the way for assistants in Ghana and West Africa to strive for excellence and to make a difference to their bosses and for themselves as an influential and valuable asset to any organization that they work for. So thank you, Alison, for joining us today. Very impressive, extremely impressive. I think you are muted.
Am I muted? Oh,
yes.
I'm muted
now you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, Alison, for joining us. So I think the first question that we all want to know is, in terms of setting up your PA company? What was the motivation behind that?
Well, it was during my time when I was working for the High Commission. I just realised that and after spending at least 2 years in Ghana, I realised that there was a gap in training for assistants. So I had identified that a lot of companies were sending their staff, admin staff, or even senior management staff to South Africa or the UK for training. So I thought that why would they spend that cost where I can give a more personalised, bespoke service, so to speak, a training service for them to invest in their staff. So at the latter end of my time at the High Commission and starting working for a private company, I started doing sort of 1 or 2 training courses for companies who needed it. Eventually, the recruitment side of the business came because I was training assistants. Companies were asking me, actually, if you've been training them, you must know some available PAs or top skilled PAs. And then the recruitment side of the business came into that as well.
And was that something that you initially thought of in terms of having the recruitment side, or is that something that
Oh, sorry.
Is that in terms of the recruitment side of the business, was that something that you thought of initially, or was that something that effectively just came about as a result of your experience of working with
it came
companies?
about with the results of just doing a lot of training, and as part of the networking I was doing, and as I was getting more contacts, people were contacting me randomly saying, actually, I know you do training, but I'm also looking for a PA. Do you know of anybody available? So some of the people who used to come on my training courses would then send me their CVs. And then I started building up a small portfolio of available assistants. But I do continually advertise and interview assistants for my books.
Thank you. And in starting the business, was there any amount of funding that you needed? Did you need to secure funding or get any investors involved?
I didn't. When I started Gem Consultancy, I sourced funding from my savings. So it was self-funded for the basic setup of my business, and which was doing my logo, my website, business registration, what else, and my laptop and printer. So I did a lot of self-funding, but I had to be careful not to overspend. You know, obviously I had this grand idea of having this luxury office looking over the city of Accra airport or something. And then when I found out what the rent was, I thought, no, forget that. I'm going to start, I ran my business from home. So I saved costs on office space. So my outgoing revenue is if I'm renting out office spaces or conference rooms or hotels. So that's my expenditure, yeah.
Okay. And obviously I know with setting up any business, there's always some challenges and difficulties that you would face. So for you, in setting up your PA company, what were some of the challenges that you faced, and what actions did you take to overcome those challenges?
Okay, so in terms of challenges, it was more personal ones. And to be transparent, I was having a bit of the lack of confidence of running my own business, and I had to overcome that. I knew I had a good market, and there was a bit of a niche that I was going to cover. And I had to learn how to sort of self-promote. The other challenges I had was being more consistent and committed in running my business, because it's easy to get complacent and think people are just going to call you and say, oh, I'm looking for a PA, or I want to do a training course. I had to get myself out there and do a bit of networking and promoting, really. And I was fortunate enough, because I had made contacts from the High Commission. We did a lot of networking events, and there were events where I had met people in my previous roles. And from that, I was contacted by an online media company who wanted to interview a new entrepreneur once a month. I think they were called E-Hype Marketing or something, I can't remember their name. So I had an interview with them, and then following that interview, I was contacted by the Business and Financial Times, and they wrote an article on me on that. And following that article, I leveraged on that, and a lot of people did contact me, and I guess business started to sort of roll on from that. So my confidence built a bit, and then I was able to establish myself and get myself out there a little bit more. Yeah, so.
And I think that nicely goes into the next question I was going to ask, which is about networking and how to build those connections. And I know, as you've already said, for you, you were fortunate enough to find yourself in the space, for example, working at the High Commission, in order to be able to build those networks. But for someone who, for example, is a student or is just about to start out, what can they do to sort of get into those kind of spaces, or to effectively network and to build those connections that would help them in setting up their business?
Yeah, so I think Arnold touched on it a bit earlier. What I did was update my LinkedIn profile. That's for, in terms of business connections, that is really, really good. It's number one, you can connect with anybody throughout the world who have similar interests to you. I also created a Facebook business page, and more recently, Instagram and Twitter. I've also joined a couple of business and diaspora WhatsApp groups where we can promote our businesses and services. They also used to hold quarterly evening events where you get to meet other businesses. And then people get to know you. Once you get involved in these sort of community of networks, people get to know you and ask you for advice. More recently, because of the pandemic, a lot of these meetings have been done via Zoom. So if I was to advise anybody who was thinking about how can they leverage on their networking, is go on the social media website, social media handles like the LinkedIn and the business Facebook pages. Yeah.
Thank you, Alison. And obviously in your role, you are in a leadership role, because you're not only training people, but you're also recruiting them. And in those circumstances, how do you promote or ensure ethical practices within your company?
Well, I work for myself, so I don't have much staff, even though I keep saying I too should have an assistant. But in terms of work ethics, I do a bit of training on that in my courses. So, and it's just how PAs and assistants should be acting professionally, know what's the rights and wrongs of working. Yeah, so I do a small module on business ethics, but in terms of me managing people, it's just for myself. So I only cover it in my courses.
And are there sort of any key points of advice that you would normally give to PAs when they are sort of going into jobs? So in terms of business ethics, any key points that you normally sort of hammer down?
Well, what I would generally try to say is be as diverse as possible when you are networking. It's better to add people from different industries and backgrounds, so to open their chances to have a broader insight into connections and to business opportunities, especially when PAs are looking for roles. As I said, I've had contacts all over the world, and we tend to connect with each other, and they have advice. They give me advice, and they also give me referrals, and I can refer people from here to do even virtual work for somebody in South Africa. So I tend to tell them to be a bit more diverse in building their contacts.
And leading on to that piece of advice as well, what advice would you give to someone who is trying to start a business? What would be that key point that you would make to them when they're trying to develop their business at the initial stages?
Well, I can only go by my experience and say that once you're committed to your goal, don't let anybody, you've got a meeting, we've got a message here. Once you've committed to your goal, I think don't let anything or anyone stop you from trying to achieve it. They need to stay focused, work hard, and try and do something every day to achieve that goal of theirs. It's not easy, because sometimes it's one step forward, two steps back, but once you stay on the process and stay committed, you will get there. And I would also say, as a business runner or an entrepreneur, running a successful business doesn't happen overnight. And I'm in the thick of it. And we all have challenges, especially since the COVID has hit, and you have a lull in your business and you try to generate how you're going to have other streams of income. But it does take time. And I think building a reputation and working hard, the rewards and the sense of achievement, I think, is boundless.
Thank you so much, Alison. So we've actually got a question, and I thought it would be helpful to ask you at this point. And it's a question from Nathaniel, who says, you know, the point in terms of networking, it's been said that one of the things that they need to use is social media spaces. But at the moment, there's a lot of competition because pretty much everyone in the market is using those kind of spaces. And so how does one person stand out when it comes to marketing to make sure that people take notice of you?
Personally, for me, I had to say, I felt that my little niche was the fact I did an NLP course. So I was able to have that little bit of difference than any other personnel, secretary training. I think you need to be putting yourself out there on a regular basis, let people know that you're there, that you're available on all social media handles. But they should see if they can find a particular niche that nobody else is doing for them to be able to stand out from the rest of the market.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alison. Thank you so much for that and for all the advice. So I think it's very useful to sort of have an understanding of how to not only build, and sometimes not necessarily thinking of, well, I need to start by having a big office, and actually starting small, because then you are actually able to make more profit that way as well, I assume.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alison. Thank you. Nana, so it's back to you, Nana. Nana, you're still muted.
Oh, yep, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Edward. You're next.
Hello. I can hear you. We couldn't hear you before.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So next up we have Edward Boateng. Actually, Edward was he led our last workshop on interviews, which was really insightful. For those of you who don't know Edward, Edward is a dual qualified lawyer in the UK and Ghana. He's worked as a senior associate in some of the leading commercial law firms in Ghana, and he's now the principal consultant at EB-Addo Legal Consultancy. So let's just get straight into it. So what motivated you to, you know, come to Ghana and actually start your own company?
I felt that the legal profession in Ghana was very, very stale, very stagnant. You mentioned that you're a lawyer to some people in Ghana, and they sort of think that you've come from the Middle Ages, you use long words, walk about in a suit all day.
Yeah.
In fact, somebody once asked me, if you're a lawyer, is it true that they bury lawyers upside down? And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, they have to sort of turn you over so you can't tell all the lies that you've had to tell over the years being a lawyer, which I found kind of funny. So I wanted to sort of create a legal practice which was sort of modern, forward thinking. I wanted to have like a new approach in sort of practicing law in the Ghana space. So with that in mind, I decided to, you know, set up my own practice. I'd worked for, like you said, some of the leading firms in Ghana, and they've been going for a long time. And I just noticed that there just seemed to be a stagnation there in terms of how they were doing things, you know? Yeah. And that's what I wanted to change. So if you're going to try and change something, the best way to do it is sort of start it yourself, right?
Yeah, of course, I agree. And I guess when you were getting started, like what were some of the challenges you faced when it came to like securing funding specifically?
Well, I it was funny listening to Alison talk. When you have a vision, when you have a dream, it's boundless. There's no boundaries to it at all. So I
Yeah.
said, right, I'm going to set up my own legal practice. And I had images of being in a high-rise building, an office space overlooking like the city, you know, having a chauffeur to pick up my clients when they come in from international jurisdictions. But then the reality is, you look at your bank account, it's like, I can't do that. I didn't want to be straddled with debt. I didn't want a huge debt around my neck. I didn't want to owe anybody. So I decided to bootstrap it myself.
Yeah.
And so once you have that strategy, you have to sort of put it into action. So I had to streamline everything that I did. And literally, I had to look what I started with what I needed. A laptop, a phone, a printer, business cards, branding, a website domain, the most important things. So that's how I started out. So it was a really, really streamlined sort of exercise at the beginning. And that was a challenge. You have to control yourself, because even when it comes to branding, you have all these grand ideas, but grand ideas cost money.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to sort of cut your coat according to your size. But it doesn't mean that the vision can't be realized, you know?
Of course. You have to start somewhere, I would say, yeah. So what were some of the other challenges you would say you faced just trying to get your consultancy firm off the ground? Like,
controlling myself, like I just said, sort of making sure that I stay within the boundaries of the plan. The other thing, of course, is for me, was getting new business coming in.
Yeah.
The legal profession is something which is saturated in Ghana, you know, and there's a lot of options for clients in Ghana when it comes to legal services. So securing new business and convincing people that, yeah, I am a little bit different from your average lawyer in Ghana, that they're what you're used to, but I can still provide you the same service in some cases, if not better. So that was a challenge, and it still is a challenge, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, the current COVID situation is a whole new game, because we've had to adapt now in terms of securing new business. You see, the legal profession is restricted in some ways. Alison can sort of, you know, do things which I cannot do. The PR guy again, once again, sorry, is it Nathan?
Arnold,
sorry, Arnold again. He's not restricted in terms of how he can sort of market himself. We lawyers, there are certain rules that we have to abide by. You know, I can't sort of put my logo on a car and drive around Accra saying, come to EB-Addo Legal Consultancy, because we're not allowed to do that. So we're restricted to, for example, having to draft legal articles and then posting it so somebody can read it and then think, oh, that's a good legal article. I'm going to call Edwin and say, you know, can we work together, sort of thing. So it's just sort of finding new ways to sort of get around the restrictions that are imposed on lawyers in Ghana. So that's the challenge too, yeah.
And would you say that has affected how you have been able to like build your networks and your partnerships?
Well, you see that the COVID situation has certainly changed it.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, it was literally a situation of getting yourself out there. So whilst we can't sort of make a loud noise with, you know, advertisements and stuff, we can go out and shake hands. We can go out and give out business cards. Yeah. So it involved a lot of sort of socializing.
Yeah.
So that was key in terms of getting a new business. Of course, now that has changed because, you know, social distancing. So now we have to rely more on social media, but it's limited to certain platforms, LinkedIn, for example, and even Twitter to a certain extent. You know, really sort of upping your social media game. You can't sort of post anything on Instagram, for example, because it's a bit more relaxed, and you're not really going to find sort of a professional clientele that would need the services that we provide. So again, we're restricted there, you know. But it's a case of sort of having to sort of adapt to the circumstances. Yeah. So now let's say we've upped our social media game. Yeah. You know. And we always trying to find new ways. Yeah.
That's good. So as a lawyer, obviously you have like a code of conduct that you kind of have to follow. How else would you say you maintain ethical practices as a leader?
For me, it's key to lead by example. Yeah. Lead by example. I mean, we're a small outfit. We've got even smaller now, obviously, because of, you know, the whole sort of COVID situation. So we've had to sort of streamline again. But, you know, when we have people on board, it's sort of, I'm a huge believer in sort of your team will always watch what you sure that we make the team understand the importance of client care, for example, quality of work. But all these things are some things that I hope that I do well enough. So then when we work with people, they see how I approach it. And that is sort of a guidance for them, I hope, anyway. Yeah.
Cool. So if a student was to come to you today and ask for your advice on setting up their own company, what would be some of the things you would tell them to do? Some of the advice you would give them?
The first thing is to try and do something which really, really interests you. All right. That is so important. I think that you can have 1,000 ideas. When you're an entrepreneur, when you have that spirit, you can sort of just wake up with 10 different ideas and think, okay, which one shall I do? But whatever you decide to do, you have to make sure that it's something that truly interests you. Mm-hmm. Because when the times are bad, when business is slow, if you're not interested in what you are doing, you're just going to give up the fight straight away. The other thing is that you have to understand what you're getting into, have an understanding of the market, understand the project that you want to build, understand your dream. Again, which is important because at some stages throughout your career, you're going to have to sell your dream to other people, mm-hmm. whether it's selling them to come on board and work with you, whether it's selling to try and get investment coming in, and even to the extent of trying to get new business coming in, all right? So that's key as well. But ultimately, do not give up. Do not give up. There's no boundaries, you know, to that regard, yeah.
Honestly. Great. And finally, I would say like networking is obviously a skill that you develop over time. What would you tell young people and students? Like what key advice would you give them when it comes to networking and actually building up their contact list?
You know what? I mean, I guess the age range of students is very, is wide nowadays, young, middle-aged, or mature students, all right? But I'm going to focus on the young students, I think, because I think that's sort of what your audience, am I right?
Yeah.
I have this thing, maintain and establish, right? So maintain the relationships that you build along the way, and you're going to, even sort of sitting in a restaurant, bumping into somebody when you're going to pay your bill, you strike up a conversation. I'll tell you a story, actually. I don't want to distract, actually, but I was flying back in the UK once, picking up my luggage. From the baggage dude, what do they call that? The baggage thing that goes round and round. Help me out.
Yeah, baggage claim. I don't know. The thing that collects that. Yeah, the thing.
Yes,
that's the word. That's the word.
And as I was waiting for my bags to come round, literally, I just struck up a conversation with this gentleman who just flown in, I think, from Holland, and we just struck up a conversation because the bags were taking a long time. We swapped business cards. About 6 months later, he contacted me because he needed legal services, and we worked together.
Yeah.
So it's always taking that opportunity. That sometimes you'll be in an environment where you think to yourself, I want to go and speak to that person, but I shouldn't really speak to them because I don't want to bother them. But you never know what's going to come out of that conversation that you've had, you know? So I've sort of gone backwards. So that's about establishing contacts. Yep. Take every opportunity that you can to establish contacts. But then, as I say, maintain those contacts. Every now and again, send somebody an email, send them a WhatsApp, or even pick up the telephone and just give them a telephone call and have a chat. You may call them on Monday and they don't have anything for you to do. You may call them on Friday. They might say, actually, I'm glad that you called me because I have a contract, or there's an issue regarding PR, or I need a PA. So thanks for calling me. Can you help me out?
Yeah.
All right. So you have to sort of maintain, but it is ultimately you sort of don't be scared. But of course, we can't sort of go out and shake hands anymore. So it's always on social media, but you can still do the same on LinkedIn. You can still message people every now and again. You can still maintain those relationships on LinkedIn or whatever sort of social media platform that you use. Yeah. But that's my advice anyway.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure.
We have a couple of questions. Okay, Edward, this one is for you. So, according to what you've said, do you think that some people just naturally have the spirit for entrepreneurship? And if you don't naturally have the spirit, should you try it? Like, you know, what do you think about that?
I It's a very interesting question. The first answer is yes. I think some people are naturals at what, their God-given talent, if you like, for example. There are some people that being an entrepreneur comes naturally. And just to sort of make it clear, being an entrepreneur, having ideas to fixing problems, having ideas to sort of change things that need to be changed. Some people are better than others at doing that, but some people can develop that skill as well. So you might start off being an entrepreneur and you're not very good at it, but over time, if you keep at it, you will develop the skills that you need. One key aspect of sort of being an entrepreneur is wanting to learn. If you don't have that hunger to want to understand things, to want to change things and learn about new things, you're going to have a very difficult journey. But the short answer is yes, some people are good at it, but you can always develop that skill. So don't think to yourself, I'm not good at doing it, I'm not going to do it. Try it.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Vida, you ready to take it?
Everyone froze and I've only sort of just come back in again. I was having a bit of internet problems as well. I think there was, I don't know if you asked, there was another question in the box as well, which it says, with bootstrapping, how did you go about it and what were some of the challenges you faced as a result of your choice of funding?
Well, maybe when I say bootstrapping in the sense of being self-funding, I didn't go out and look for capital. It was all from my own personal income. I didn't go out and look for investors at all. It was just me, as Alison said, sort of looking at your savings, thinking, do I need to get a second job to fund my dream here? Fortunately for me, I didn't have to do that. I just basically took from my savings. But that's because, as I say, I started off with a very, very streamlined practice, all right? If you are thinking about looking for funding to help you establish your dream, well then you have to be very organized about it. You have to be in a position to convince investors to sort of give you their money. So that one, you have to be very strategic. You have to have a business plan. You need projections about the income, about the potential that your company, your business can do. So you have, for that approach to funding, you have to sort of plan it very, very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Edward. So last but not least is Cleopatra. So thank you so much for joining us, Cleopatra. Like, we're really great. I think we've heard from pretty much all the panel and everyone is very impressive, and Cleopatra is just as impressive as well. Cleopatra is the managing attorney of a law practice she founded called Nketia Law. She's also a co-founder and CEO of the women's football club called Ridge City Football Club for women. She's currently a board member of the Ghana Football Association Women's Premier League Management Committee, and is also the committee secretary of the Women's Division 1 League Management Committee. Cleopatra is committed to the development and promotion of women's football and women in football in Ghana. So that's very impressive and a lot of work. Very busy. So I think, Cleopatra, so for you, it's two different things that you've effectively combined into one. So not only are you the founder of your own law firm, but you're also the founder of a women's football league. And so in relation to that, I think there's on the face of it, it looks like two completely separate avenues that you've effectively merged into your practice. And so what motivated you to start both those businesses?
So I just like doing things that nobody else is doing, well, in Ghana actually. And I don't see why something needs to be done and nobody's doing anything about it. And in touching that point, I'd like to also mention that I forgot to add to the stuff that I do. I'm more like doing 3 different things, not just 2 different things. So I am actually doing the law thing, which I like to call the law thing, because lawyers in Ghana think they're the biggest thing that happened since life. I don't think of it that way. So I'm doing the law thing, and I'm doing the most important thing to me, which is the football thing. Okay. And then I'm like a general entrepreneur. Wow. So I do, like, I have like a history of starting a lot of businesses.
Wow.
So I am like super busy all the time.
Yeah.
In Ghana, you grow up in Ghana, and I don't know if any one of you has seen like the Yvonne Orji special, where she did like the Mama I Made the comedy skit thing, and she was talking about how in Africa you are either an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor, or a disappointment, right?
Yeah.
So growing up, you don't want to be a disappointment.
Yeah.
So you start off by picking a career that people can get behind. So that's the whole law thing. Went to school, studied law, became a lawyer. I'm called to the bar in Ghana and in New York, and I've practiced and I've studied in the UK. I'm not actually called to the bar in the UK like some of our learned colleagues over here, Edward. But yeah, I'm qualified to be called to the bar, but I haven't yet done that yet. Yeah. And I came to Ghana from all this education. And I found out that the thing that I actually want to do with myself, which is being a footballer, I haven't been able to do anything about it apart from just dabbling in left and right here and there. So I decided that, look, let me just get into football. And then I found out that, well, there are women's football clubs around, football teams around, but nothing that I'd want to join. And so I was like, what the hell? So I started my own football club. And it started off as like a fun club that was meant to have people coming through during the weekends, you know, let's just all see how much fun we could have. And it's just spiraled into something completely different. It's turned into an actual football club where we have girls all the way from ages 8 to like 30 looking up to me. People actually call me Madame. And if you know me, Madame is the last thing that you should be calling me. People are like calling me Madame, looking up to me, always like just waiting to hear what I have to say. And I'm like, what? So it's like something like completely different. And that's actually what led me into becoming the GFA's board member for the Women's Premier League Committee, as well as the Women's Division 1. I don't even know how that happened. One day I was like running a football club for like 5 minutes. And the next thing I know, I'm like at the top of the women's game in Ghana's football. And that's like something really crazy. And I'm juggling that with being a lawyer as well, because being a lawyer actually pays the bill for now, because women's football in Ghana is kind of like a passion. People don't take it seriously, so nobody really actually looks into it. But it's an actual like full-time job and a full-time career for these women. And in order to pay the bills for myself and for them, I do the law thing. So started my own law firm. Like what Edward was saying, same thing. You start a law practice and you think about, how can I go ahead and do this? Do I like go around asking people for money, or do I bootstrap it? And the great thing about being a lawyer is that your tools are right here. It's in your head. You don't need to like, you don't actually even need an office. But I mean, for the sake of seeing clients and stuff, you do like need a place to like see clients. So the overheads being a lawyer isn't that big of a deal. All you need is your brains and your laptop, or even a phone, if your phone is that good. And then that's it, you're a lawyer. You go around, you network, you look for clients, blah, 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 blah. And then that's pretty much it. I'll say something though, unlike Edward, and I don't understand why Edward was trying to keep me a little secret, but I actually do work with Edward as well. So I did start my own law practice, and Edward and I went to school together, and we know each other. And, you know, starting things out by yourself can be difficult. You can do anything you want to do by yourself, but it's always great to work with somebody else. If you look at the tech startups, a lot of the tech startups, you have co-founders, but hardly do you see one person just starting a tech startup or something like that. And it's because there's a lot that you can do, but it's always great when you combine with somebody else. So I also kind of work at Edward's law practice, and Edward kind of works at my law practice. So yeah, we are partners. I don't know why he was keeping me a dead little secret, but Edward, I'm just out. Yeah. So it's actually been easier working with somebody, because when you're doing the football stuff, it's always great to know somebody else has your back in terms of the law stuff. Edward brings in work, we all bring in work, we work together. We see how we can all support each other, and just try to make it work. So juggling football and being a lawyer has been a challenge, but it's something that I enjoy. And another thing that Edward and I are doing, since I'm outing you more, Edward, we do have like a tech, sort of a tech startup, which we're doing, legal tech, if I may call it that way. And we are combining the law with technology. And we are trying to ensure that what Edward was talking about, the whole stuffiness of being a lawyer, the whole having to read an entire dictionary if you want to talk to the client thing, just trying to throw that out there and just check everything out, and just trying to make law a bit more relaxed, a bit more fun, and brought into the 21st century. Edward was mentioning that it's very difficult for lawyers to like advertise, and well, we can't advertise, and you have to market. And it's very difficult. It means you having to go around shaking hands, passing business cards around. That is so like 19th century. And we're not even about that. Everything that I need is right on my phone. It's my business card. And so it's great to like understand that you can combine tech with the legal side of things and then still get business. Ed and I are creating platforms where lawyers can meet, find clients can pay lawyers, people can just interact with lawyers, just kind of remove the whole stuffiness of being a lawyer thing around, and just make it an engaging and something that people don't look at lawyer and go like, okay, so you're here now, what are you going to do now? How are you going to drain me of my money? So we're just trying to change the perception in Ghana. So it's been like this whole crazy thing that has happened to me over the last 2 years. And here I am being a lawyer, bringing legal tech or bringing the legal side into the 21st century, as well as being engaged in football. And it's a whole different world and different drama that comes with it. So it's not, football is not really something that's different from anything that anybody else has discussed over here, but it's like its own world. And it's something that I'm really, really happy to be a part of. And if Edward woke up one day and I wasn't a lawyer anymore, this is the reason why. So Edward, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Cleopatra. And I think a lot of what you do is because you have that personal passion to want to do it, and that's what your motivation is well, the point is do what you love and then do it well.
Exactly.
And that's really good. And I think going to the next stage, because I know when you were speaking about football, you pointed out that for you to be able to get funding, you obviously have to take from one job and then invest into the other job. And so is that how, in all aspects, in terms of how you funded your businesses, is that how you normally fund it? And are there sort of alternative ways to also fund businesses? For example, looking at investors, and I know that's something Edward touched on earlier as well. In terms of how did you fund it, and what advice would you give to people who might not necessarily have the savings or have any funding at all available to them?
Yeah. Okay. So in order for me to have started my law practice, I had to take from somewhere, and that was working for a law firm. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so I was working one of the biggest law firms in Ghana, and I had to just make a plan to get out. So it involved saving some money and then just getting ready to start something different. It wouldn't be advisable for me to say here, but I'm going to say it anyway. So when you're working for a law practice in Ghana, or even any business, and you want to leave, the best thing to do is to start thinking about your way out. And that includes saving money, and that also includes actually putting your feet out and getting your feet wet before you even exit. I think there's a saying that says that don't leave a job until you have another one lined up. And that's kind of what I did. So whilst I was setting up my new law firm, I was still working on my old law firm, and that kind of helped pay for all the expenses and everything that I needed to do. And when I was all set, I was out. So it kind of happened. It wasn't the same thing with the football thing, because I started the football club. So it was just a simple matter of whenever I did work and I got paid, just put it into the football business. So for football, you would think that you need a lot of money to start a football club. That would be the general idea about the whole thing. But in Ghana, unfortunately, it's not that way, because people don't respect women's football in Ghana. So it's pretty much something that's up for grabs all the time. All I had to do in terms of starting my football club was to go to the Registrar General's department and then register a company and called it Rich City Football Club Women. And then that was it. That was the only thing that I had to do to the legal side of starting the football club. And the next thing I did was put out flyers to say, hey, women's football club, anybody want to play? Meet me here on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And the next thing I know, 50 girls show up. And you're like, what? I only thought we were going to get 5 people or something. But then it's just something that just blew up like that. And footballers in Ghana don't get paid. We have professional footballers, and then we have amateur footballers. So professional footballers have the expectation of getting paid, but amateur footballers don't. And a lot of the girls in Ghana are amateur footballers because there's no expectation of getting paid. Even the male footballers in Ghana hardly get paid. You'll be shocked to find out that you can have a Premier League football club for men, and they're probably getting 100 cedis or 500 cedis a month, which is super crazy. But that's what's happening. So for the women, you don't even expect to get paid. So even though it's a bad thing, it's kind of good for like club owners because it helps you limit your expenses. Now I know that I'm starting a football club. The only expense I have is maybe buying the football kits, buying the footballs, just securing a place for them to train, and it's manageable. So it doesn't really require funding. But once you get to the level where, oh, I need to pay my players, I need to like have my own facility, then you have to look for funding. And in terms of looking for funding, it's mainly about getting the interest from people who are interested in like funding your business. For like football, people think that women's football is a joke. So even getting people to even sponsor, just put their names on your shirt, 1,000 CDs, and they're like, yeah, why should I? And you're like, why not? But then people don't get it because they think it's like a hobby. So if you're looking to like for like serious investment from football, like for the football area or whatever area that I'm talking about right now, it's just about getting people who are also interested in what you have to do and finding a way to like keep them interested in what you're doing. Because it doesn't even matter what you're doing, as long as what you're doing is something that will help the person who is investing in your business. That's like one of the things that people do, because people are putting out money because they're hoping to get money back. There's that category of people, and there's also the category of people where they just want to help and they'll put their money into anything. So in terms of funding for football, that's one of the major ways that we have money coming in. For my club, it's totally and 100% bootstrapped. We've had people like come in and offer like something here and there. I actually had one person actually gave me 2,000 CDs, which I was like, what? Like, that was like the last time anybody gave me that huge amount of money. And that's like a year ago for football. Other things have just been in terms of like support and stuff like that, which I appreciate. But in terms of money for women's football funding, it's kind of like non-existent. You hardly see that. But for law as well, you wouldn't really need that kind of funding coming in unless you wanted to like do what Edward and Alison were saying, get a big ass office, airport 1 square, corner office with like a lot of employees walking around just saying, madam, every time you walk past. Obviously, you have to check your bank account, and then you realize that, nah, the madam is probably going to have to come from my family members and my little sisters or whatever it is, because it's not about that. So that's what happens. It's about what kind of funding you need and what kind of business or institution that you're trying to run. So yeah, you just have to think about it that way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we've got some questions which I'm going to save to the end, but just to get some of the panel questions done first. Obviously, I know that in everything, you've spoken about all the different roles that you've played, and in everything, there's always some challenges that you will face. So what I wanted to find out is, what challenges did you face and how did you overcome those challenges?
So the biggest challenge was, in terms of the women's football, is the fact that people don't respect women's football. In the beginning, it's kind of like a secret. Like, what do you do? And I start off with like, oh, I'm a lawyer. I also do women's football. And it's like, after some time, you're like, why are you afraid of this? Why are you ashamed of this? Because the culture that we live in says that you have to be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, or a disgrace. And I didn't want to be a disgrace. So I start off with saying, oh, I'm a lawyer. But then after some time, I'm like, I'm trying to change this. I'm trying to advocate for women's football. Why should I say I'm doing football last when football is actually the main thing that I'm doing? Yeah. So I start off by telling people now that I own a women's football club. Oh, and also I'm a lawyer. And most of the time, people are more intrigued when I say I own a football club than when I say I'm a lawyer. It's like, you're a lawyer? Yeah. You're here to probably drain me of money. But you own a football club? Wow. Let's talk about that. And I found out that challenge of being ashamed of being involved in women's football just fell away when I started to own it, when I started to embrace it and say, this is what I'm doing. I don't even tell people I'm a lawyer sometimes, because I'm like, you are going to love women's football. I have like a hashtag going on Facebook and Twitter that says, you will love women's football, because that's what I'm about to do to people now. I'm not going to stop. Edward doesn't even have much interest in football, but these days he doesn't wake up without me telling him something about football, because I am going to make him and everybody love football. And once I overcame that, I'm like, this is how we're going. For the law practice, it's pretty much just about finding clients. It's very difficult finding clients in Ghana, because like I was saying, you say you're a lawyer and people just think that you're here to leech off them. Nobody ever thinks a lawyer is important until they're in trouble. And even when they're in trouble, they don't want to pay for your service. So it's like you've gone to school for the last 10 years, given up your passion to be a lawyer, and people don't want to pay you for saving their lives. And it's just something it boggles my mind. But it's something that we're dealing with and we go through every day. And that one is like a continuous and constant challenge. But I mean, we get through it, because after years of being a lawyer, you understand that there are some people that will just make your life difficult, and there are some people that have just understood what you're doing and what you're about. So you just have to try and make sure that you're going for that kind of people that understand what you're doing and what you're about. And there are always people out there who get you, because if that weren't the case, we'd all be broke as lawyers. So yeah, we're trying to see how we can overcome that best.
Great. And in terms of, you've already spoken about the difficulties with networking in terms of the law. And I know that other people on the panel have also touched on, you know, using social media as a networking tool. Is there anything else that you would add in terms of how students and, you know, up and coming entrepreneurs or people who want to start their own businesses can do to build, you know, new connections and to develop those kind of relationships that will help them?
Yeah. So my favorite word, branding. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you are well branded, people will come. The only reason why there's 2 lawyers on this panel right now is because I've branded myself as a football person, as a women's football advocate. That's the only reason why there are 2 lawyers on this panel. You weren't going to call like 2 people say the same exact thing. And that is it. People know me as women's football person. People know me as an advocate. People know that's what I'm doing, a women's football club owner. And the minute you brand yourself, people will come. What it is that my club, Rich City Women's Football Club, if you go on social media and you type Rich City in social media, like any Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere, you are going to see my club. We've branded ourselves so well on the internet that we have people coming to us all the time, always trying to work with us, always trying to talk to us, always trying to understand what we are doing. We are the only women's football club in Ghana that has social media pages that's followed by the UK ambassador to Ghana, the High Commissioner to Ghana, and FIFA Women's World Cup, and a whole host of celebrities following and interacting with the page. We are like one of the we are the only club that has been featured by the UK High Commission. They did this feature on like women's football in Ghana, women's interaction in Ghana, and we're the only football club that they've done, and not even the men. And it's all because they've seen what we are doing and how we're positioning ourselves, how we're putting ourselves out there. We aren't the only women's football club in Ghana. We're not even a club in the Premier League. We're in the Division 1. So when you come to Ghana or any football league, you have the Premier League, which is the first side, and then the Division 1, which is underneath that. And people bypass all these clubs in the Premier League and come down to a Division 1 club because we've branded ourselves so well that people know that, look, we don't even care where you are. This is where we are coming to. And we haven't even played an actual professional game in our life. What we've done is just play like tournaments and just like fun games and stuff. We haven't even played any professional division league, and yet we're the biggest thing when it comes to women's football in Ghana. And that's what it's about. Put yourself out there. Put yourself on social media. Whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you want to be, put yourself out there. Talk about it. Come on people's shows. Tell people about it. People want to hear about what you're doing, and people want to hear about it from people that they know. So because it makes it more real. When you know that, look, Edward did this and he made it. Why can't I do it? Because it's not that thing that you're looking at like Beyonce. Beyonce made it. Beyonce's in America. She's the biggest thing that ever happened, blah, blah, blah. But then when you see somebody around you, somebody in your community making it, you're like, well, I guess I can do this too. So that's just pretty much what it's about. Just put yourself out there and just get ready for everything that comes at you, because it will come once you put yourself out there and you're well branded. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask another question, which is from Felicia. What she wanted to know is, obviously, your role involves a lot of multitasking.
Yeah.
And so what she wants to know is, how can you how do you effectively multitask? How does one do that effectively? What kind of tips and tricks can you give her?
Yeah, so to make sure that Edo doesn't fire me from his law practice, we've had to like put in a because there's a lot going on, and if we don't do that, Edo's gonna text me and I'm gonna go like, listen, I'm at the football training session, I can't do this now. So we put in place days and times for doing things. We have this calendar and we say, right, Monday mornings, we are doing law. Tuesday, we are doing our entrepreneur stuff. Wednesday, it's football. Do not even call me. I'm not even going to pick up my phone. And so you have to like just schedule everything that you're doing. And even after you've scheduled it with other people, you have to schedule it with yourself. Because even if I put it down that I'm doing football today, and then I wake up and I'm like, today I don't feel like doing anything. Well, you're not going to get anything done at all. So it's something that you just have to figure out, and then just try and just keep going, keep at it. Every time I'm like, just like lazing about and like not doing anything, I feel like, oh my God, I should be doing something, right? Cleo, you should be doing something. And it's true, and that's what it is. There's so much to do all the time. There's so much to do. And I used to have a friend who had his own business, wasn't like working for anybody when I was working for people. And I was like, what are you doing with yourself all day? Why are you always pretending to be busy? Why are you always on the computer? I know you're not doing anything. And then I started this whole entrepreneur thing myself. And I was like, wow, how was he ever off his computer having time to do anything else? There's so much to do. And so it's just about figuring out what you want to do, when you want to do, and just arranging and organizing your time effectively to do it. And when you are doing that thing, you have to be committed and be all about it and make sure that until you hit the targets of the day, you do not stop, because there's a lot to do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then another question we wanted to ask is, in terms of key advice, so what would be for, because a lot of the people listening in are students, they're still in university, they're about to finish, come out and start life. So in terms of key advice, what key advice would you give to anyone who's trying to start a business?
So you have to be passionate about it. If you're not passionate, you're going to fall along the way. I've started a lot of businesses, I'm still doing most of them. And the one thing that I realized is that the only business of mine that is actually like the pinnacle of the game is the one that I started by myself and I did by myself. Because the fact is that if you're doing something with somebody else, the person isn't committed, they're going to drop by, they're going to stop, they're going to disappear. You're going to say something that's going to offend them and you never see them again. And if you're passionate about what you're doing, like the law thing, the football thing, you're never going to get a chance to even go like, you know what, I think I'm done with this. I have to keep mentioning Edward's name because I work with Edward and he's not my little secret, Edward. But Edward and I understand each other and we're passionate about what we are doing. We may not be so passionate like, oh, we want to be lawyers, but we know what we are doing. We know what we are about. And despite whatever happens between the two of us, no matter how many times we argue, we fight, we always come back to it because we know that this is what we decided to do. This is what we are actually going to do. This is what's going to be the money maker. This is what we have to do. And we're doing it. So if you want to do something and you don't have any interest in it, it's going to be really, really difficult. And I think that's one of the reasons why people tend to work for other people, because they want to do something, but okay, fine. Maybe we'll bring in some money. Let me just see what I'm doing. Yeah. And then they stick around other people's business and just keep doing it for the rest of their lives. But then you realize that if you're really, really passionate about something, you really, really want to do it. If things are happening and like Eddo was saying, it's not going the way that you like it. You're like, I'm out. I need to start this. I need to do this a certain way. I need to fix it the way I want to fix it. So you have to be passionate about what you're doing. That's like the biggest advice. And you have to know what you're doing and just go at it. Even if you don't know what you're doing, just head in the right direction and everything will fall together. Like I was saying with the football thing, I didn't start off trying to be a football club, the biggest thing in Ghana. It started off like, let's just get together and play women's football. And that was the direction that I wanted to go in. And the next thing I know, the football club, we are having conversations with like the UK FA, all the different bodies that are coming at me. And I'm like, when did this even happen? But that's just it. Just head in the right direction and just be there and just wait for everything to come at you because it will. Yeah.
So I've got two questions again for you, Cleopatra. So the first one is from Isaac, whose question is, do you voluntarily sort of go out to schools and other social institutions to recruit players, or do the ladies tend to come to you with the desire to join the club?
So for my football club, it's so well branded that people keep coming to us all the time. I have actually been yelled at by other football club owners to stop what I'm doing. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I just use the internet to post pictures of the really cool things that we're doing here. Because their players keep coming into my club. Their players keep running over. Their players have been warned not to step anywhere near my club. And I'm like, I don't even know why you're sitting on other people's careers. But that's just what it is. When you branch yourself so properly like that, people keep coming at you. And it got to some point that we had to shut the door because there were just too many players coming in. We can only look after so many. But I mean, it's the thing is that we're a women's football club and we're encouraging women's football. So it doesn't matter. It's just that you only have 11 players on the pitch at the time and only about 18 play on the day. So we've opened the door for anybody and everybody who wants to come and play. So we will train with you, we'll work with you, everything that we want to do with you. But for actual games that we played and we will play, we only choose players that at least are interested in football and are there to like do something and not just like have fun. Because when it comes to playing games, we are out here to try and win, not just have fun. So yeah, but I mean, in terms of players, it's always open out there. We're always asking people to come in if they want to come in. People always come. We haven't yet gone around looking for people yet, but I don't think that we will have to. But it will get to a point where when the women's game is so like advanced that we probably have to now start going around and poaching people's players. And at that point in time, I would understand it if somebody were like, leave my players alone. But like until then, yeah, this is it for now.
And we've got one more question from Felicia. I think she wanted to ask that question herself. So I'm just trying to unmute her now.
Okay, awesome.
So that she can ask. Not sure. Are you there, Felicia? Hello, Felicia. Okay. I'm not sure. Yes, it's not.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not going through. Or I don't know what's happening. Oh, okay. So I think, she said it was a mistake. Okay. So that's fine. Are there any questions? Does anyone else have any more questions? I think, Edward, there was a question for you directly, that was directed towards you, Edward. Before I move on to ask Edward, thank you so much, Cleopatra. Like, obviously, you're extremely passionate about what you do. You're tasking genius. There's no doubt about that, and you're doing absolutely brilliantly. So thank you so much. It's extremely helpful to hear from you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And with Edward, so we've got a question directly for Edward, which says, in terms of speaking about learning, they've heard from people that it is helpful for an upcoming entrepreneur to find a mentor. But then at the same time, very few people are actually willing to mentor individuals. And so in terms of mentorship for your own business, when you speak of learning, is it just only on the job learning, or do you have to sort of find external ways to learn and develop? And I think that's something that actually all the panel members can speak to as well.
Yeah. One thing, I mean, the funny thing is I made some notes, and one of the things I put down, and I forgot to mention, is about having a mentor, is about finding somebody who has done what you're trying to do, or a variation of what you are trying to do. And it's right, and it's sad that a lot of people who have sort of been through the struggle that you're about to go through, who've been through the struggle that I'm going through, but they're not prepared to sort of look back and say, actually, I'd like to sort of pull somebody along with me and sort of share the knowledge that I've learned. I have a few mentors. Clea is one of my mentors, believe it or not. She wouldn't know, but she is one of my mentors. I have a couple of people that I will pick up the phone to and say, look, either this thing I'm trying to do is going so slowly, or I'm losing the vision, I'm losing sight, I'm coming off the path, So it's important to sort of, sorry, someone's trying to call me. It's important to try to sort of have that individual. And it is right that some people are reluctant to do it, but just keep on knocking at their door. It's all part of it. It really is all part of it. Of course, learning on the job is very important, but just try and find that somebody that you can call every now and again and sort of share the experience that you're going through, and let them sort of share with you how they sort of got to realize their dream. Yeah, so it's not just learning on the job as well. If you can find a mentor, it's important. And the thing, just so I'm clear about this, the mentor doesn't always have to be somebody who's sort of way ahead in front of you. It can be somebody who's going through the same journey as you are going on. They might be doing something completely different, but the conversation that you guys will have in terms about the journey that you're going on, you'll be surprised what you'll learn from each other. Yeah, so that's what I would say to that.
Thank you. And does anyone else have anything to add to that as well? Cleopatra and Alison.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it's just what Edward has just said. It's funny, I also was going to mention about having a mentor. So I think it is important to have somebody to bounce your ideas or even suggestions, or when you're stuck on something, somebody who's been through it before and's been in it for a few years. I think sometimes what the issue is when you're trying to find a mentor, they feel that they have to devote 2 hours out of a week to meet with you and things like that. If you can have a flexible arrangement with somebody whereby you can just pick up the phone, if they can't speak to you, you'll arrange another time to call them back, just to get advice, because I've had one since I've started my business, and it's been extremely helpful. And also what Edward had mentioned, it could be somebody who is starting a business or on the same path as you, on the same level. And I have a couple of people as well who are overseas, who I do call, and we actually hold each other accountable when we say we're going to be doing something, and in 6 months' time or less than that, we haven't done it, and we'll explain why we haven't done it and what are we going to do now to make sure we get to where we want to. So yeah, it's definitely advisable to have a mentor or even a coach.
Cleopatra?
Yeah, Alison said coach, and well, she just hit me because that's like something that footballers would say. So yeah, footballers do have coaches and stuff, and that's pretty much what I guess mentorship is about for footballers, because you have to understand what you're doing, and you have to know what you're doing, and sometimes it's not always that way. So obviously somebody has to lead you and teach you what you need to do and how you need to do it. I'm not just saying this because Edward mentioned me, but yeah, Edward is also kind of my mentor as well, because Edward is actually, yeah, Edward. It was 15 years at the bar. So, and I was like 2 minutes at the bar. So yeah, there was a lot of learning that had to go on between Edward and I. Edward kind of like does teach me how to like be patient and understand certain things. And we've had so many conversations where Edward just had to calm me down, because I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, what the hell is going on? And then he's like, yeah, but this is what happens, what you have to do. And it's something that is needed, because sometimes you understand something and you want to do something and you want to get it done a certain way, and people are just like going this way when you're trying to go that way. And so it's good to like have somebody who just like keeps you grounded, keeps you understanding and patient and know what's going on. And that's kind of what I guess Edward does for me in terms of law. In terms of football, he's completely rubbish. But like, yeah. But you have to have like that kind going on as well. For football, I don't really have like any mentor going on, but I think that it's something that would be very advisable, because it's an industry that for people like me and for Ghanaians and for people who are now getting into the whole football thing, you don't understand what's going on. You don't know what's going on. There's a lot of learning done on the job, which wouldn't be a great way to learn, but when you're starting something on your own. But I mean, you don't have any choice but to figure things out as it goes on. And I've done a lot of that when I started my football thing. But you look up and then you're trying to see people who are doing the same thing as you. And in Ghana, it's pretty hard to find that. You have to look at what's going on in other countries, what other people are doing. Google has been a great mentor. Use Google a lot. But trying to do that and in turn, trying to be that for other people. So when we started this whole thing, both the law and both the football thing, Ed and I have noticed that a lot of people keep coming up to us as well, asking the same thing. How do you start a law firm? How do you run a business as a lawyer? How are you doing so many things? And we are indirectly ending up mentoring people. We've had to like do this so often that we've even thought about starting a business out of it. And it's something that is really well needed, and people are trying to like get involved in, but it's not for the legal side and for the football side. It's something that should be there, but you don't really see it that much. It happens. You have people who start relationships with people and then it ends up being that way. But it's not something that you don't have like those mentorship programs that are found in other businesses and other industries that like, oh, have like a legal mentorship thing going on. We don't really have that. But maybe that's something that Ed and I should like also look into, actually like normalizing. So it's something that's out there and people can actually easily find. Yeah.
That's great. We also have a couple more questions, which I'm just going to throw out there to you guys. Okay, so as an entrepreneur, is it advisable to bring people on board to complement your downsides or train to be all round? Generally, is there a danger in involving too many people in your business? Whoever would like to go first.
Too many cooks, too many chefs, or whatever spoil the
Yes, spoil the stew, yeah.
I don't like can testify to that. So I'll leave you to continue.
Yeah, you know, it is a danger bringing on too many people to help you realize your dream. No, let me rephrase that. It's a danger bringing on too many partners to help you realize your dream. All right. I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to put a team together to support you to realize your dream. All right. There's nothing wrong with that. But you see, you have to make sure that you're bringing people on board. Those who are coming on board to support you, you have to make sure that they have the right mindset. All right. I'd like to say that you have to make sure that they have the same mindset as you do, but that's not always possible. But you have to make sure that they have the same, one, that you can sell them the dream. All right. And two, that they buy the dream and that they can support you in realizing that dream. So it's very, very important. So be careful who you bring on board. But if you bring on board partners, Cleo and I, we can testify to this one. Be very, very careful, because I think there's been so many good ideas which have collapsed because the partnership didn't work. There was a misunderstanding. You couldn't agree on things, so you just decided to split. So if you're bringing on board a partner, be very, very careful. If you're bringing on people on board to support you again, be careful. Yeah, that's my advice on that.
Yeah, that kind of ties into what I was saying earlier, that I've started a lot of businesses with a lot of people, and the most successful one is the one that I did on my own. But in terms of that, it doesn't mean that you should do things alone. You should be always on your own. Hence the partnership that Addo and I have going on. You just have to understand the balance and just ensure that whoever it is that you're bringing around you, or whatever circles that you're in, you can live in those circles, because there's not always going to be good times. There's going to be good and bad. You should just be able to understand that when the bad times happen, it's probably going to end up being something you have to brush off your shoulder. And if you see in the beginning that, listen, this isn't going to work out, it's just best to let it go before you guys get into something serious. And the next thing you know, 4 years has gone past and you guys are still fighting about the same thing that nobody remembers how the fight started. So yeah, it's good and bad. Yeah.
Can I just add one more thing to that? Sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot. I'm very sorry. If you're bringing on board a team to support you, all right, do not be afraid to bring somebody on board who is better than you.
Yeah.
Right? If you can find someone who is better than you at doing a certain task that you need to be done within your organization, bring them on board straight away, because that can only be a bonus to what you're trying to do. Don't think to yourself, well, this guy or this woman, they're much, much better than me, so I can't control them or whatever. No, you could think the opposite way around. That's going to help you develop what you're trying to do, you know? So it's important. And another thing is, avoid micromanagement if you're trying to start something. If you're bringing people on board to help you, don't feel you have to micromanage them. Empower them to do what they do well, because again, that's only going to help you move forward in what you're trying to do.
I think that it's difficult for some entrepreneurs who work on their own to be able to not micromanage, especially when it's something they've created and it's their baby, so to speak. Yeah, so it's a lesson learned for the person to be able to allow their partner or a team member to join in their business. I call it collaborative working. So if it doesn't work, if they've got their own business, they can split ways amicably and get on, and do our things separately. But I like to call it collaborative working. So I still have my business and they can still have theirs. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I think you've all touched on it, but we do have another question, which is asking, like, if any, do you have like any specific criteria that you look for in like people that you want to hire to bring on board as part of your team or to work with? Is there anything specific that you look for?
Well, I guess they have to also, like Addo was saying, they have to share your dream and your vision, the goals. Yeah. Because if you're trying to go left and they're trying to go right, it's never, ever, ever going to work. So that's the one thing, because when you're talking to people, you can tell if they understand what you're doing and if they are about what you're doing and they want to move in the same direction. Unfortunately, you can't really predict behavior, and you may be on the same path. It's like marriage. You may be on the same path in the beginning, and then 10 years down the line, you're like, didn't really work out. But so you can't really know for sure that you are entering into something with somebody that's going to last. But at least in the beginning, people come into your lives for all sorts of reasons. Yeah. Maybe in the beginning, you guys had the same goals, the same vision, and they probably propped you up and pushed you in the right direction. And then something happened and they fell along the side. So there's absolutely nothing wrong getting into a partnership with somebody that doesn't work out. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing that is happening is growth and learning. And you've learned something and you know that, right, next time somebody like that with that same criteria comes, maybe this is how I handle the person, or maybe I completely cut the person off. So there's never any downside to doing something like this. You just have to manage expectations and manage the kind of relationship that you have with the person, and just always understand that things cannot always go right. So once you have that in the back of your mind, you're happy and it's very easy to start or get anything going on. Yeah.
Can I, what I'd like to add in terms of like a criteria as well, that is that when we're interviewing people sometimes, I think I mentioned this before in our last webinar that we did, is character. Character is very, very important when you're looking in terms of a team to sort of bring on board. I think one thing I've noticed since I've been, living in Ghana is that companies like to they're like yes people. All right. For some reason, there's a fear of having somebody on board who is going to speak their mind, who might say to their boss, "Well, I think that's a bad idea. Have you thought about doing it this way? Or I think this is going to be a better idea." So certainly in terms of criteria, I would say, you know, look for people who have some sort of character about them and who aren't afraid to speak out about things, because it's important. I just seen a question. Somebody says about the team make the dream work or something like that.
Yeah.
Team makes the dream work or something. And it's important. It's your team at the end of the day. There's somebody at the front of the team, of course. But for me, discussion should always be like at a round table, you know? Should always be a round table discussion. So in terms of criteria, yeah, add that to the list, I think.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Okay. Right, did you have any more questions coming in or anything?
No, I think I've checked and I think we've answered all the questions.
Okay.
But yeah, so thank you to all the panelists, and I'll leave it to Nana to wrap up.
Yes. No, thank you guys so much. I think each of you, you know, have brought something very different to this conversation. And I hope that everybody that's been able to join in and listen has taken something from each of their journeys. I mean, this is going to be available on our website. It's going to be available for you guys to watch again. So if there's anything that you kind of want to go back over, then please do. You have a couple of minutes maybe to message the panelists. Maybe you want to take some information from them or something. I don't know. If you do, then, you know, please go ahead. And yeah, just thank you so much. If you want to find out more about Inspire, please do visit our website, www.inspire.org. I don't know if you guys want to maybe put out your information there as well, in case anybody kind of wants to follow what you guys are doing too.
Yeah, I guess so. For the final word, I guess we can just throw the final word out there, since I'm advocating for women's football all the time.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, before we exit or leave the show or the program, I guess one of the last things that I'd like to say is just people just try to support women's football. It doesn't take that much. You don't even have to do anything. Just going on our page, just liking what we're doing, just looking at what we are doing, because the economy or the age that we're living in is all about the looks, the likes, how many people are watching, and that's just all that it takes. So it doesn't, like 21st century social media, just look, support women's football. You don't even have to put any money into it. You can find me on any social media platform. If you Google my name, I'm sure you see a lot of things that pops up from Cleopatra Nsiah Nketia. If you Google Rich City Football Club, the same thing as well. My email address, I guess we can put all that information out there. If you want to do anything for women's football, just hit me up, or even sports in general, just hit me up. If you're looking for one of the best lawyers in Ghana, you can call me. I might give you access to Edward as well. But yeah, you can call me up, and that's just me marketing myself out here. And thank everybody for the questions and for asking and for being here, and for just participating in whatever it is that we threw out today. Hopefully see you guys soon. Yeah.
Definitely. Can I just say, of course, as well, because just to that last, I think the question about mentors, I can't sort of say try and find a mentor without offering services to be a mentor, to give advice. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and, you know, if I can help out, and I will drag Cleo on board as well. If we can help out, give you some advice, you know, feel free.
Yeah.
But most of all, don't be afraid to fail, by the way.
Yeah.
Remember that.
That's a good one.
Don't be afraid to fail.
Thank you so much, everyone. The other thing as well is because at the beginning we had a lot of technical difficulties with people trying to join in, and I know that there were a lot of people who wanted to join in, but unfortunately they didn't, or they couldn't join in because of issues with trying to join the meeting. So we have recorded it, and we'll try and sort of put it together, neaten it up a bit maybe, and we'll post it on our website and circulate the link, so you can watch this again if you missed the beginning, because at the beginning Arnold Baidoo was also present, and he also spoke about his work and his experience with PR management and communications. And so if you missed that part of the talk as well, then you can watch it again. You can take notes, you know, if you haven't taken notes today, you can rewatch it, take notes, and make sure that you're ready and prepped. And anytime you sort of need advice, you can always go back and listen to the brilliant advice by all our panelists again. So we'll try and get that out as soon as possible for everyone, because we know that obviously today a lot of people wanted to join in, but they couldn't because of the technical issues that we had. But thank you for those who did join in.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, guys. It's really appreciated, much appreciated.
Thank you too.
And thank you. Excuse me,
Thank
Club
you.
Palace.
Thank you.
Okay, bye everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.